In 1989, Lucille Ball, once the beloved queen of television comedy, passed away in near-complete solitude, a heartbreaking contrast to the days when 44 million Americans tuned in weekly to watch I Love Lucy. How did one of the most adored stars in Hollywood end up so alone? And why did even her closest family and friends seem to vanish when she needed them most? Behind the laughter was a life marked by betrayal, financial setbacks, and family wounds that never fully healed. Lucille Ball spent her final years in silence, but the reasons behind it speak volumes. Lucille's early life was shaped by grief and instability. At just 3 years old, she lost her father to typhoid fever in February 1915. He was only 27, and her mother was pregnant with Lucille's younger brother. The family, which had moved frequently due to her father's job with the phone company, found themselves in Michigan when the tragedy struck. The aftermath was devastating. Her mother fell into depression and was unable to care for the children. Lucille was sent to live with an aunt, while her baby brother went to stay with their grandparents. Lucille later described her childhood as defined by loss, and one eerie moment stuck with her forever. A picture falling off the wall and birds tapping at the window right after she learned of her father's death. From that day on, she developed a lifelong fear of birds. Just when life seemed to settle, more hardship followed. Around the age of 12, a neighborhood accident changed everything. Her stepfather had set up a safe shooting range with a .22 rifle, but when a younger boy unexpectedly entered the area, he was struck by a bullet and left paralyzed. The boy's family sued, and Lucille's family lost everything: their home, furniture, and insurance. Her grandfather, overwhelmed with guilt, never worked again, and they were forced to leave town in disgrace. At 14, another dramatic chapter unfolded when Lucille began a relationship with a much older man, Johnny DeVita. In a desperate attempt to pull her daughter off a dangerous path, her mother sent her to a prestigious drama school in New York. But Lucille floundered. Teachers told her she lacked talent and even returned her mother's tuition money. Lucille later confessed that all she learned there was fear, but fear didn't stop her. Instead, it fueled her resolve. Lucille returned to New York in 1928, determined to prove her doubters wrong. Her journey was halted again by illness. She was bedridden with rheumatic fever for 2 years. Despite this major setback, she didn't quit. When she recovered, she pursued modeling, landing a job with renowned designer Hattie Carnegie, who insisted she bleach her brunette hair blonde. Lucille agreed and transformed herself, learning grace, elegance, and how to command attention without uttering a word. Though she never let go of her dream of acting, modeling taught her how to present herself with confidence, an edge she would later use in her career. Throughout the 1930s and early 1940s, Lucille took on dozens of film roles, many of them minor or comedic. She appeared in more than 75 movies, but Hollywood never saw her as a leading lady. Instead, she was pigeonholed as the queen of the B-movies. Though she made light of it, the label stung. Still, she kept going, turning each role into a learning opportunity. She studied the industry from the inside, preparing herself for the moment she would take control of her own image and career. In 1940, she met Desi Arnaz on the set of Too Many Girls, sparking not only a romantic relationship, but eventually a groundbreaking professional partnership that would transform television and finally give Lucille Ball the spotlight she had earned. When Lucille Ball met Desi Arnaz on the set of Too Many Girls in 1940, sparks flew instantly. Desi walked up to her, asked if she could rumba, and cheekily offered to teach her, but only if she went out with him that night. Lucille, charmed by his boldness and energy, was instantly drawn in. She would later say she had never fallen in love so fast. Everyone on set noticed the chemistry, though some doubted the whirlwind romance would last. Despite warnings, Lucille was captivated, so much so that she spent an estimated $29,000 on long-distance phone calls after filming Wrapped. In November 1940, just 6 months after meeting, they eloped in Connecticut following a heated argument about Desi's wandering eye. The impulsive wedding shocked many, especially in an era when interracial relationships were controversial. Lucille was a white American star, and Desi, a Cuban musician, didn't fit Hollywood's mold of a leading man. Years later, when Lucille insisted that Desi play her husband on TV, CBS resisted, fearing audiences wouldn't accept a Cuban-American couple. But Lucille wouldn't budge. She called their marriage the most daring thing she'd ever done, despite knowing it came with complications. Those complications surfaced quickly. Desi's constant touring clashed with Lucille's early morning filming schedule, and they barely saw each other. More troubling was Desi's view of fidelity. He believed emotional loyalty was what mattered, despite numerous affairs. Lucille struggled with his infidelity and growing alcohol use. Even before their marriage, friends had warned her about his reputation with women. By 1944, just 4 years in, Lucille filed for divorce. Their fights were explosive, and their daughter, Lucy Arnaz, later recalled a childhood filled with yelling and emotional turmoil. Despite their problems, the couple couldn't stay away from each other. After the divorce filing, they reconciled in what many described as a passionate reunion. This cycle of breaking up and making up would define much of their relationship. Believing that working together might keep them together, Lucille made a bold move. When CBS wanted to adapt her radio show, My Favorite Husband, for TV, she insisted that Desi play her husband. When the network balked, they took their act on the road, touring the country to prove their chemistry worked. Audiences loved them, and CBS finally gave in. I Love Lucy was born. Creating I Love Lucy revolutionized television. Lucille and Desi insisted on filming in Hollywood, not New York, and Desi led the charge to use a 3-camera setup with a live studio audience, an innovation that became the standard for sitcoms. They also filmed on high-quality 35mm film and agreed to take a pay cut in exchange for owning the rights through their production company, didnt. That move paid off when reruns turned the show into a syndication legend. In 1952, the couple faced another challenge when Lucille became pregnant. Despite CBS's objections, they refused to hide it. Once again, Lucy and Desi broke barriers, this time by showing a pregnant woman on TV, further cementing their legacy as pioneers. When Lucille Ball became pregnant during the filming of I Love Lucy, the network faced a dilemma. At the time, it was considered inappropriate to mention pregnancy on television. To get around this, the writers came up with a clever solution. They incorporated her pregnancy into the storyline without ever using the word pregnant. Instead, they used more delicate phrases like expecting or with child, and even used the French term enceinte in one episode. Religious leaders were asked to review the scripts to ensure they were appropriate. When the episode featuring Lucy giving birth aired in January 1953, the same day Lucille gave birth in real life, an estimated 44 million people watched. Legend has it that water usage across the country dropped during the broadcast because no one wanted to miss a single moment. Following that milestone, I Love Lucy soared to unprecedented success. For 4 out of its 6 seasons, it was the most watched show in the United States. When the series concluded in 1957, it was still #1 in the ratings, a feat only matched by The Andy Griffith Show and Seinfeld. Lucille won an Emmy for Best Comedian, and both Desi Arnaz and producer Jess Oppenheimer took home Emmys as well. Over time, the show would win 5 Emmy Awards and cement itself as a television landmark. Even decades later, I Love Lucy continued to captivate audiences. In 2012, a poll named it the greatest TV show of all time, and in 2013, a colorized version of its Christmas episode drew over 8 million viewers in a single night. Behind the scenes, Lucille and Desi built a media empire. They founded Desilu Productions, which quickly became the largest independent studio in the country. After purchasing RKO Studios for $6 million, Desilu began producing other hit shows such as The Untouchables, The Andy Griffith Show, and The Dick Van Dyke Show. What started as a romantic and professional partnership to stay connected evolved into a powerhouse production company. However, by 1960, Their marriage had ended. What surprised many was Lucille's next move. She bought out Desi's share for $2.5 million and took over Desilu, becoming the first woman to lead a major Hollywood studio. Despite skepticism from the industry, Lucille proved herself to be a savvy businesswoman. While continuing to star in The Lucy Show, she made executive decisions, managed large budgets, and negotiated high-stakes deals. She even created a syndication department at Desilu, long before syndication became standard practice. One of her boldest decisions came in 1966, when she greenlit two high-risk, high-cost shows, Star Trek and Mission Impossible. Advisors thought they were too expensive and too unconventional, and Lucy initially misunderstood Star Trek, thinking it was about celebrities touring, but she trusted her instincts and was proven right. Both shows became legendary. By 1967, Desilu was thriving again, and Lucille sold the studio for $17 million, leaving a legacy as one of the sharpest minds in TV history. Lucille's pioneering efforts in television were almost derailed by scandal in 1953. A gossip columnist hinted that a famous red-headed TV star had ties to communism, without naming her. But everyone knew it meant Lucille Ball. The next morning, headlines screamed, "Lucille Ball named Red." At the height of McCarthy-era paranoia, being accused of communist ties could destroy a career. Lucille admitted she had once registered to vote as a communist in 1936, not out of belief, but to please her grandfather. She cooperated fully with the investigation and explained she had never attended meetings or participated in the party. While Lucille quietly defended herself, Desi stepped up publicly. In a bold move during the filming of the new season's premiere, he addressed the audience and even played a recorded statement from FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, clearing Lucille of any wrongdoing. Then, with emotion in his voice, Desi quipped, "The only thing red about her is her hair, and even that's not legitimate." The audience erupted in applause. Lucille, tearful, stepped forward to thunderous support. She was later named Woman of the Year and even dined at the White House, emerging from the scandal not only unscathed, but stronger than ever. After her painful divorce from Desi Arnaz in 1960, Lucille Ball had no intention of marrying again. At 49, she felt worn down and heartbroken. But everything changed one night in New York when a friend arranged a blind date for her with a nightclub comedian named Gary Morton. At the time, Lucille was performing in her first and only Broadway show, Wildcat, and the date happened in a modest pizza place. Not exactly glamorous, but it worked. Gary, 13 years her junior, had never seen I Love Lucy, which Lucille found refreshing. He wasn't dazzled by her fame. They began dating, and just 11 months later, they married in an intimate ceremony with only about 40 guests. Despite its small size, a crowd gathered outside the church, cheering and shouting, "Good luck, Lucy!" Lucille would later write that Gary was kind, funny, and deeply loving, and she considered herself incredibly lucky to have found him. Their marriage lasted nearly 28 years until her death. Wildcat, however, was far from a smooth ride. The Broadway show was supposed to mark a triumphant chapter in Lucille's career, but a snowstorm delayed its opening, and the production was plagued by setbacks. Audiences expected her to be like her beloved TV character, Lucy Ricardo, but the stage role was very different. In an effort to please the crowd, Lucille began incorporating more familiar comedic expressions into her performance. Still, reviews were lukewarm, and the pressure took a toll on her health. Eventually, she collapsed on stage. The show couldn't sustain the mounting costs and was forced to close after 171 performances. Around this time, Lucille also faced personal turmoil when her teenage son, Desi Arnaz Jr., began dating actress Patty Duke. Lucille disapproved of the relationship, despite having once been in a similar age gap romance herself. She gave Desi Jr. harsh ultimatums, fearing the impact on the family's image. Patty Duke, dealing with her own mental health struggles, claimed she held no grudge, though she was hurt by Lucille's treatment. Meanwhile, her on-again, off-again relationship with Desi Jr. grew more complicated when Patty became pregnant shortly after marrying Michael Tell, a marriage that lasted just 13 days. Rumors swirled that Desi Jr. was the father, something Lucille found devastating. Patty later admitted she allowed the public to believe it, though she knew it wasn't true. When her son Sean was born in 1971, the media frenzy was so intense that the hospital hid his name from reporters. Lucille refused to visit the baby, though Desi Sr. and Lucy, Desi Jr.'s sister, did. Years later, DNA tests confirmed Michael Tell as the biological father. Despite the scandal, Desi Jr. stayed in Sean's life. The gossip, headlines, and drama deeply shook Lucille, who had worked so hard to cultivate a wholesome image. Even after I Love Lucy ended in 1957, Lucille Ball's career stayed strong. In 1962, she launched The Lucy Show, which became a hit. After selling Desilu in 1968, she started Here's Lucy, casting her own children. The show addressed modern topics but began losing viewers by 1973. Her daughter left the show and Lucy began considering a return to film. The earlier exit of her close friend Vivian Vance had already left her deeply saddened. In 1985, Lucille took a dramatic turn in Stone Pillow, playing a homeless woman to prove she could do more than comedy. It was a success, but her next sitcom, Life with Lucy, flopped and was canceled after just 8 episodes. The failure hurt, and she stepped back from the spotlight. Her final public appearance came at the 1989 Oscars, where she received a standing ovation. That same year, her ex-husband, Desi Arnaz, was dying. Despite their divorce, Lucy stayed by his side. On what would have been their 46th anniversary, she called and told him she loved him. He replied, "I love you too, honey." 2 days later, Desi passed away. In April 1989, Lucille suffered a heart emergency. Though surgery gave hope, complications followed, and she died on April 26 at age 77. Lucille Ball left behind a legacy of laughter, strength, and heart. She was more than a star. She was a fighter who never stopped trying to grow, love, and stay true to herself. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow classic TV fans. Stay tuned for more stories behind the stars. Thanks for watching.